Hey guys, Mrs. Karaz here. This is Chapter 5, Section 4. It's the last one of this chapter. The war begins. Alright, so we pick up with the Second Continental Congress, and this one was held in Philadelphia in May of 1775. There were many delegates from the different colonies here. Some notable names. We've got Thomas Jefferson, a young lawyer from Virginia, John Hancock, a Boston merchant, and Benjamin Franklin, the inventor and politician we've talked about previously, from Philadelphia. So, at this meeting, right, the representatives who are here disagree on whether or not they should claim independence from Britain, right? Do we want to be, are we fighting? So the question is, do they want to be their own independent nation, or do they just want to fight for better treatment from Britain? Either way, they agree that they need to prepare for war, whether or not they'll be the ones to start it, right? There's obviously been conflict between the colonists and the British soldiers in the past. We want to be prepared for whatever comes our way. So they decide to form an army to protect the colonies, and they choose George Washington as the commander. He had military experience. He was well respected. We remember everything he was involved with Fort Duquesne and Fort Necessity. So they say Washington's our guy. They also decide to begin printing paper money to help pay for this army, right? We're going to start a new form of money that will be in circulation here in the colonies. So here's the big thing, right? They're still deciding whether or not they want to claim independence, but by forming an army and printing money, the Second Continental Congress is taking on roles that are usually reserved for a national government. So even though they're saying they don't know if they want to be independent yet, they're kind of making moves in that direction. So among the colonists, we get some differences of opinion, right? Some people consider themselves patriots. And patriots favored colonial independence from Britain. They don't want to be a part of Britain at all anymore, and they're willing to fight for it. This was the majority of the population at the time, and it often included people who lost wealth thanks to British rule. So if you were one of those, merchants who lost money when the port of Boston was closed, guess what? You might change your mind and become a patriot now. We also have loyalists, and loyalists were people who remained loyal to the king and the British government. They did not want independence. About a third of the population were loyalists, and often this included people who gained wealth thanks to British rule, or craved the security that Britain could offer, right? Establishing our own country is going to be risky. How do we fit in the political landscape of the world? We don't know. Britain's established and powerful. Staying with them could help us, is what loyalists were thinking. So some people were either undecided or ambivalent, which means they were torn in both directions equally. These people were often either disregarded the politics of the time, they just weren't paying attention, or they were minimally affected by it, right? If you're maybe if you're a tobacco farmer in South Carolina, right? Well, guess what? The Navigation Acts kind of helped you. You weren't being harmed. You might just be neutral, right? And these people were called neutralists. So now many African Americans sided with the British, thinking if the British won, that they themselves would be given freedom, perhaps, because Britain did not have as established a system of slavery as we had in the colonies at this time. And many Native Americans also sided with the British, just because they thought if the colonists win, they're going to take more of our land. So let's go with these British guys. Alright, so in early 1775, some loyalists send the olive branch petition to King George. And an olive branch is kind of a well-known symbol for peace. So this petition stated that colonists were loyal to King George, and it requested that the king stop fighting and begin to discuss peace with the colonists. Let's not do this. Let's not make this a war. Let's just talk it out. King George didn't deny this petition. He just straight up refused to respond to it. Absolutely does not acknowledge this petition at all. This is not great for the colonists. So that was drafted by Loyalists. Patriots come up with their own piece, and it's called the Declaration of the Causes and Necessities of Taking Up Arms. This was written by Thomas Jefferson, and it was distributed the day after the Olive Branch Petition. And in this declaration really said that the colonists were ready to die free men rather than to live as slaves. And granted, if we think about the history of slavery that's currently occurring in these colonies, that's pretty ironic. But bottom line is the colonists are saying they are willing to fight for their freedom, and if they lose their lives in the process, so be it. They do not want to be under British control anymore. Now this petition, King George responds to. And he says, now the colonies are in open rebellion. They're not trying to be quiet about it. They're not trying to play nice. They're openly fighting against British authority. Which brings us to battles that unfold because we are now rebelling. So on May 10th, 1775, colonists led by Ethan Allen, who is a blacksmith, attack the British Fort Ticonderoga in New York, and this becomes known as the Battle of Ticonderoga. It was a sneak attack, and the British were completely caught off guard, and they surrendered almost immediately. Here's why it's important. So this battle, Fort Ticonderoga controlled the route between Canada and the Hudson River Valley. So by gaining control of this route, we're really taking advantage over the British. This fort also held lots of valuable weapons, especially cannons, and now that the colonists have control of this fort, they also have control of these weapons. We get another battle, the Battle of Bunker Hill. So by June of 1775, the British had 6,500 troops in Boston. And colonists, they had 10,000 troops surrounding the city, just in case the British tried an attack. So the colonists are trying not to be the aggressors, but they are ready to fight back if Britain starts something. So at this point, British General William Howe leads an attack up Bunker Hill, which is near Boston, to test the willpower of these colonial troops. His question is, are they really going to fight? Like, they say they're going to, attack, and as soon as we start something, they'll continue, but let's put their money where their mouth is. So colonists wait until Howe and his men are about 150 feet away, then they open fire. There are several attacks involved in this battle, but the bottom line is the British won. The British win, but they suffer over 1,000 casualties. Colonists, on the other hand, suffer 400 casualties. So even though the colonists lose the Battle of Bunker Hill, they've proved their resolve to fight, right? They've established the fact that they're not going to back down. They're in it to win it. They're going to stand up and actually fight for what they believe in. After a few months, Washington moves those cannons that he got at Fort Ticonderoga to Bunker Hill, and now that this even more intense threat is in the area, it gets the British troops to leave Boston. Alright, so looking at some advantages and disadvantages in the war as a whole. So the British had some serious advantages, right? They're a well-established nation. And at this time, they have a very, very powerful navy. And they use that navy to blockade American ports, or shut them down by preventing ships from coming in or out. So imagine around our ports a border almost of British ships, that if ships try to sail out, they will be attacked, and if ships try to sail in, they will be attacked. This is a way that Britain is really hurting us economically. We cannot conduct trade with other countries if we can't get ships out of the port, right? So Britain also hired mercenaries or paid soldiers from other countries to help them fight in the war. We don't have that kind of financial power right now. Britain does. So they are willing to shell out money in order to get more troops on their side. Alright, the last slide of this chapter. So at this time, Richard Montgomery and Benedict Arnold were two colonial military leaders, and they decide to lead some colonial men into Canada. And remember, Canada is under British control, but it's still separate from the colonies. So both men had terrible journeys and dealt with starvation, freezing conditions that were really hurting the soldiers that were with them. So they attacked Canada, but they were attacked right back by the British, and they were just too weak to put up a serious fight. The journey was too unendurable. So at this point, the colonists withdraw, and this is really our key that this war is not going to be fought in Canada. They're on their own. The British can have Canada. It is what it is. We're going to fight for colonial independence here. And that will bring us into the actual war itself, which we will pick up with next chapter. That is it. Have a good day, guys.